Thank you so much, Marjorie, for taking the time. Tell us about your effort to censure or to kick Rashida Tlaib off of committees.
Well, I introduced the censure resolution last week, Charlie, and it will be brought to the floor for a vote this Wednesday at around approximately 6:30 p.m. But here's why it's so important for me to talk to you today. We need some more courage in Congress, and some of my Republican colleagues feel like they may not have the stomach to censure anti-Israel, anti-America, pro-Hamas, pro-terrorist Rashida Tlaib. They feel like they don't want to watch her in the well, wearing her Palestinian scarf around her, crying as she is censured by Congress. But in fact, that is absolutely what we must do. We cannot tolerate a hate America, hate Israel member of Congress. They should never exist. No one should be elected to serve in our United States Congress that speaks the vile things that Rashida Tlaib says, that supports terrorism and supports the groups and is aligned with the groups that she is aligned with. So the censure resolution must pass, and I need your listeners, I need your viewers to call all my Republican colleagues and tell them to vote to censure Rashida Tlaib.
So just remind our audience specifically, what has she said that is worthy of a censure?
Well, what she did is she gave a speech on the day that she launched an insurrection. She gave a speech lying, saying that it was Israel's fault. Israel bombed a hospital in Gaza, when in fact our own news agencies, our own intelligence were reporting that it was Hamas themselves that bombed the hospital. So she lied. She aligned herself with these groups, radical groups, Jewish Voices for Peace. They are not for peace. That sounds like a lovely name. But the ADL, in fact, calls them an anti-Semitic, anti-Israel hate group. And if you were labeled that way by the ADL, then we know that you are a serious extreme leftist communist organization and, in fact, a real hate group. This group, Jewish Voices for Peace, is aligned with terrorists. They support terrorists and fund terrorism. Another group that was involved in the insurrection on the Capitol complex, where almost 1,000 people marched in the streets there and hundreds went into the Cannon building, taking over our building. Another group was called Global Intifada. Intifada means Arab uprising, Arab rebellion, or jihad. And this is the group that Rashida Tlaib was with when she gave the speech that same day, right before the group marched on the Capitol complex and came into our building, taking over, refusing to leave. And so this is extremely radical. This is terrifying, Charlie. I want to remind you, this happened on the same day Hezbollah declared a day of immense anger. They wanted a worldwide day of immense anger. They were calling for terrorism. They were calling for protests, calling for violence all over the world on a day of immense anger. And Rashida Tlaib organized with that group, and they did protest, and they did an insurrection into our Capitol complex, stopping Congress and stopping the Senate. So this is just a fraction. She's also has an extreme record of anti-Semitic language, but speaking out against Israel. She supports BDS. Rashida Tlaib is a radical, and she does not support or stand for anything that we stand for here in America.
So let me ask you, do you anticipate every Republican colleague voting for this? And if not, why?
Charlie, I did anticipate every single Republican colleague of mine, and even Democrats, because I've talked to several of them that want to vote to censure Rashida Tlaib as well. But I want to let you know, I was shocked last night on our GOP conference call when several Republican members of Congress spoke up and said they did not want to vote to censure Rashida Tlaib. That was Rep. Wahlberg from Michigan, Rep. Duarte from California, and Rep. Young Kim from California. And she even went so far to say, Young Kim said that she didn't want to have to vote on political positions. Yet Young Kim, I'd like to remind everyone, voted to kick me off of committees, but somehow she feels uncomfortable voting to censure Democrat, anti-Israel, pro-Hamas Rashida Tlaib. So it seems like Republican Young Kim would rather stand with Rashida Tlaib than stand with me, because she kicked me off committees but doesn't want to censure Rashida Tlaib. So that's why I'm talking to you about this today, Charlie, is My Republican colleagues need to understand that this is supported widely all over the country. Censuring Rashida Tlaib, people would love to see it go much further. They'd like to see her kicked off committees. They would like to see her expelled from Congress. But look at the real situation where we are, where I have Republican colleagues of mine that don't have the stomach or the courage to even vote yes on a censure resolution against Rashida Tlaib.
So the question in front of the Congress right now with the new speaker, Speaker Johnson, is Israel funding, Ukraine funding, and also border funding. Do you anticipate the Israel funding getting its standalone vote? Shouldn't we also pair the border funding with the Israel funding? What is your stance on this, Marjorie Taylor Greene?
My stance is that America's border comes first and foremost because I serve in the United States Congress. Our border should be the priority, and our border should be the border that we are most concerned about. We've had over 10 million people cross our border since Joe Biden became president, and there's over 1.5 million gotaways. Those include terrorists, criminals, rapists, people that have gotten out of insane asylums and left prisons. These are some of the worst people in the world, and they are loose in our country. We have no idea where they are, who they are, and what they're going to do. So the only vote I would like to take this week for funding any protection and security for a border would be for our own border for the United States of America. That's where I stand. But last night on the GOP conference call, our new speaker, Mike Johnson, said that he will be bringing to the floor a standalone bill funding for Israel at $14.5 billion. Charlie, I have to let you and everyone that watches your show know that we have already passed $3.8 billion for Israel, for weapons, for protection, and also for their Iron Dome. That money sits in our defense and our state and foreign ops bills over in the Senate, and Chuck Schumer and the Democrats in the Senate haven't even looked at those bills, and Joe Biden hasn't signed them into law. So there's $3.8 billion already ready to go for Israel if the Senate would do its job and Joe Biden would sign it into law. But let me go a step further. Israel is an independent nation. They are a nuclear armed nation, and Israel prides themselves on defending their own country and defending their own people. They have not asked the United States of America for troops on the ground or anything of the like. And so I would like to see our Congress support our southern border. We are over $33 trillion in debt, and the American people don't feel like writing checks nonstop to other countries to defend their borders. Now, while I'll say this, I do stand with Israel and I support them in their war, and I support their efforts in defending their people from these terrorists and evil people, Hamas, and what they've done to their innocent Israeli citizens. But I will not be voting to send billions and billions of dollars to yet another country when we have done nothing for our own border. And I've been an absolute no from the beginning on Ukraine. I voted to send $0 to Ukraine. Our only position should be bringing peace to that country and ending the proxy war with Russia. So if there is a funding bill for Ukraine coming to the floor, I'll be voting no on that as well.
Marjorie, let me also ask you about this continuing resolution. Speaker Johnson said that he might punt to January, basically, letting the Senate off the hook. Do you support holding the line, getting different spending bills put forward? Where do you stand on the continuing resolution debate?
Where I stand is doing our job, Charlie. I voted no on both continuing resolutions that were brought to the floor in the past month or so. I have no problem if the government has to shut down. That doesn't bother me one single bit because it doesn't bother the American people. And everything runs smoothly on time every single day, whether the government is funded or not. And it's such a lie that's told to the American people that when the government shuts down, that everything falls apart, because that's not true. Social Security checks keep coming. Medicare checks keep coming. Many important things continue to be funded. What we have to do is we have to break the cycle in Washington, D.C., and we have to be able to get our work done. And Charlie, Congress operates on a calendar of failure, and it happens every single year, no matter which party is in charge, where we go home during August recess and half of September, but yet somehow are supposed to fund our government and finish with all of the budget and all the appropriation bills by September 30th. It's absolutely ridiculous. You can't finish anything. You can't finish any job if you're not willing to show up for work every day leading up to the deadline. And so I've brought this up over and over in my conference and talked about it openly to the press, and no one has responded to me yet. No one is willing to change the calendar. So until Congress is ready to solve the real problems that lead us into this never-ending government shutdowns and omnibuses and continuing resolutions, kicking the can down the road, I don't care to play the game in Washington and vote for more continuing resolutions. I have no problem voting no to them. I think we should be focused on passing our 12 separate appropriation bills and finishing the budget. We're over 70% passed. We just need to focus on the ball and get our job done.
Marjorie Taylor Greene, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Charlie.